$28.50 for a large pepperoni pizza? Highway robbery. Victoria Sterling rubbed her swollen belly through her silk robe, phone pressed to her ear as she paced the marble floor of her sprawling living room. Fine, whatever, just make sure it's hot when it gets here. She ended the call and tossed her phone onto the Italian leather couch, watching it bounce once before settling into the cushions. 7 months pregnant and craving the greasiest, cheapest food imaginable, life had a sick sense of humor. Here she was, sitting in a $40 million mansion that should have belonged to her ex-husband, reduced to ordering pizza at 11 p.m. because her live-in chef had quit last week. Good riddance, she thought, pouring herself sparkling water from a crystal pitcher. At least pizza delivery guys don't judge you for eating in your bathrobe. The baby kicked hard against her ribs, as if protesting her food choices. Victoria winced and pressed her hand to the spot. Calm down in there, little one. Mommy's just having a craving. Mommy. The word still felt strange on her tongue. 6 months ago, she'd been Victoria Blackwood, a ruthless corporate lawyer. Now she was Victoria Sterling, pregnant ex-wife of tech mogul Adrian Sterling, living in the house she'd fought tooth and nail to keep in the divorce. Her phone buzzed with a text from her lawyer. Final settlement documents signed, $180 million transferred to your account. Adrian's appealing, but it won't stick. You won. Congratulations. Victoria smiled, that cold, satisfied smile that had terrified opposing counsel for years. She'd won all right. She'd taken Adrian for everything he was worth. The house, the art collection, the offshore accounts he thought he'd hidden so well, all because she'd been smart enough to document his supposed infidelity with carefully staged photos and a well-paid private investigator. The doorbell chimed its expensive melody, echoing through the cavernous foyer. Victoria glanced at her Rolex. 23 minutes, not bad for a Friday night. She padded barefoot across the cold marble, her silk robe trailing behind her like a royal train. The security monitor showed a young man in a baseball cap and pizza delivery uniform, holding a thermal bag. Ordinary, harmless. She disarmed the alarm and opened the heavy oak door. Large pepperoni? The delivery guy's voice was pleasant, professional. Mid-20s maybe, with kind eyes visible beneath his cap's brim. Finally, Victoria reached for her purse. You know, $28.50 for one pizza is absolutely ridiculous. In my day... Ma'am, the delivery guy held out the insulated bag with a polite smile. Your pizza's still hot, promise. Something about his tone made her pause. Too casual, too familiar. But she was hungry and tired and her back was killing her. Right. Keep the change. She handed him $35 and took the bag. Have a wonderful evening, Mrs. Sterling. Or should I say, Mrs. Blackwood? Victoria's blood turned to ice. She hadn't used her maiden name in 2 years, not since she'd married Adrian. Mrs. Blackwood? How could he possibly know that name? But the delivery guy was already walking down her circular driveway, whistling softly. He watched his taillights disappear into the night before closing the door with shaking hands. Mrs. Blackwood. How could he possibly know that name? Hey, my friend, hope you're doing well. Drop a comment and let me know how you're feeling about this story so far and where you're watching from. Some stories are too close to my heart to share on YouTube. I send those, along with little life lessons and surprises, to my email circle. If you'd like to be part of it, you can join with the link in the description. Victoria carried the pizza to her kitchen, trying to shake off her unease. The delivery guy was probably just confused. Maybe he'd delivered to the previous owners. Maybe he saw her name on old mail. There had to be a logical explanation. She opened the pizza box and the smell of melted cheese and pepperoni made her mouth water. A receipt was tucked under the lid, standard procedure. But as she lifted it to throw it away, she noticed something else underneath. A small piece of paper, folded once, handwritten. Victoria unfolded it with trembling fingers and the words hit her like a physical blow. I know what you did, and I know whose baby you're carrying. It's not his. The receipt fluttered to the floor, Victoria's legs gave out, and she grabbed the kitchen island to keep from falling. Her heart hammered against her ribs so hard she thought it might burst. No, this couldn't be happening. Nobody knew. She'd been so careful, so thorough. The timing was perfect. She'd seduced Marcus, Adrian's business partner, during that conference in Miami, then slept with Adrian 2 weeks later when he got back from Tokyo. When she'd announced the pregnancy, Adrian had been over the moon, never questioning the dates. The divorce proceedings had started a month later, right on schedule. She'd played the part of the wronged wife perfectly, with tears and righteous indignation when she discovered Adrian's supposed affair. The judge had been thoroughly convinced. Adrian had been blindsided. But somebody knew. Somebody had been watching. Victoria's hands shook as she read the note again. The handwriting was neat, careful, masculine, and at the bottom in smaller letters were 3 words that made her stomach drop. See you soon. She stumbled to the window, pressing her face against the glass. The driveway was empty, the street was quiet, but somewhere out there, someone was watching. Someone who knew her deepest secret, that the child growing inside her belonged to Marcus Chen, not Adrian Sterling. Someone who knew she'd orchestrated the entire divorce for money and revenge.
The baby kicked again, harder this time, and Victoria doubled over. No, 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 she whispered. This can't be happening. I was so careful. I was so smart. But she hadn't been smart enough. And now someone else was playing her game. Someone who held all the cards while she sat defenseless in her stolen mansion, pregnant with another man's child. Victoria clutched the note to her chest and realized, for the first time in her calculating, manipulative life, that she might have finally met her match. And they were coming for her. Victoria's fingers wouldn't stop trembling as she poured herself a glass of wine, then remembered the pregnancy and shoved it away. The note lay on the granite countertop like a coiled snake, its words burned into her memory. Think, Victoria. Think like the lawyer you used to be. She grabbed her phone and scrolled through her contacts until she found the number she needed. It rang 3 times before a gravelly voice answered. Sterling, do you have any idea what time it is? Detective Morrison, I need your help. Victoria tried to keep her voice steady. She'd paid Robert Morrison very well over the years to look the other way on certain irregularities during her divorce proceedings. Someone's threatening me. Threatening how? A delivery man left me a note. It's personal. Blackmail, maybe. A pause. Victoria, you know I can't officially investigate every crank who... 50,000. The words came out sharper than she intended. Cash, tonight. Another pause. What kind of note? Victoria read the message, leaving out the part about the baby's paternity. Morrison whistled low. Could be anyone. Ex-husband's friends, business rivals, some obsessed fan who read about your divorce in the tabloids. These rich people divorces always attract the crazies. Adrian doesn't have friends, Victoria thought bitterly. She'd made sure of that during the proceedings, systematically destroying his reputation and relationships. I need you to check security cameras in the area. Track down this delivery guy. I'll see what I can do. Send me the time and address. And Victoria, be careful. Rich ex-wives make tempting targets. After hanging up, Victoria double-checked every lock and reset the alarm system. The 40-room mansion suddenly felt enormous and vulnerable, every shadow a potential hiding place. She'd bought this house for its size and grandeur, symbols of her victory over Adrian. Now it felt like a prison. She climbed the sweeping staircase to the master bedroom, one hand on her lower back. The baby had been active all evening as if sensing her distress. In the massive walk-in closet, Victoria pulled out a small jewelry box hidden behind designer shoes. Inside, beneath velvet cushions, lay a burner phone she'd used during her affair with Marcus. Her finger hovered over his contact. Marcus Chen, Adrian's former business partner and co-founder of Sterling Tech. Brilliant, ambitious, and utterly ruthless in business. Also, the father of her unborn child, though he didn't know it. The phone rang twice before Marcus answered. Well, well, Victoria Sterling. I thought you'd deleted this number. We need to talk. Do we? Last I heard, you were living happily ever after in Adrian's house with Adrian's money. Congratulations on the divorce settlement, by the way. 180 million? Impressive, even for you. Someone knows about us. The line went quiet. When Marcus spoke again, his tone had shifted from casual to deadly serious. Explain. Victoria told him about the delivery man and the note, carefully editing out any mention of the pregnancy. Marcus listened without interruption. Could be a fishing expedition, he said finally. Someone suspects but doesn't actually know anything concrete. Or someone has photos, evidence, proof. If they did, wouldn't they have used it during the divorce? Why wait until now? It was a good question. Victoria had wondered the same thing. Maybe they're planning something bigger than just exposing the affair. Maybe they want money. How much are you thinking? The casual way he asked made Victoria's skin crawl. This isn't just about money, Marcus. If this gets out, I lose everything. The house, the settlement, my reputation. Your reputation? Marcus laughed. A cold sound. Victoria, you destroyed Adrian's life for sport. You bankrupted a man who trusted you. You think anyone's going to cry if you get a taste of your own medicine? I thought you'd be more concerned, considering you were part of it. I was part of a business acquisition. You turned it into a weapon. His voice hardened. Whatever game you're playing now, leave me out of it.
The line went dead. Victoria stared at the phone, feeling more alone than ever. Marcus was right to be cautious. He had his own company to protect, his own reputation to maintain. But his coldness stung more than she'd expected. She was scrolling through her contacts, looking for someone else who might help, when her regular phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Did you enjoy your pizza? The next delivery will be more personal. Sleep well, Victoria. Tomorrow we play. Victoria's hands shook so violently she nearly dropped the phone. Whoever this was, they weren't done with her. They were just getting started. She ran through the house, checking every window, every door. The security system was armed, motion sensors active, cameras recording. But she'd learned tonight that money and technology couldn't protect her from someone who truly wanted to hurt her. In the kitchen, the pizza sat untouched and cold. Victoria stared at it, remembering the delivery man's face. Young, clean-cut, forgettable. Except for his eyes. Now that she thought about it, his eyes had been older than his face. Calculating. Familiar. Where have I seen those eyes before? She grabbed her laptop and pulled up the divorce proceedings files, scrolling through hundreds of photos and documents, court transcripts, depositions, surveillance photos she'd used to frame Adrian for adultery. Her lawyer had been thorough, documenting everything and everyone connected to her case. There, in a background shot taken outside the courthouse, a young man in a crowd watching the proceedings. The same eyes, the same bone structure. Victoria zoomed in until the image pixelated, but she was certain now. He'd been watching her for months. Victoria's phone rang, making her jump. Morrison's name flashed on the screen. I checked the cameras, he said without preamble. That pizza place, they don't have any deliveries logged to your address tonight. And the van caught on your neighbor's security camera? Stolen plates. Professional job. Victoria's blood turned cold. So he wasn't really a delivery driver. Doesn't look like it. Victoria, this is serious. Someone went to a lot of trouble to get close to you. They're organized, patient, and they know your routines. What do you think they want? Could be anything. Money, revenge, information. But people who go to this kind of trouble, they're not usually interested in a quick payoff. They want to hurt you. After Morrison hung up, Victoria sat in her kitchen surrounded by luxury that suddenly felt hollow. She'd spent 2 years methodically destroying Adrian's life, taking everything he'd built and claiming it as her own. She'd been so proud of her strategy, her ruthless execution. But someone had been watching, learning, planning. And now they were coming for her with the same calculated precision she'd once used to destroy the man who'd loved her. Victoria pressed her hands to her belly, feeling the baby move restlessly inside her. I'm sorry, she whispered, though she wasn't sure if she was apologizing to her unborn child or to Adrian or to some cosmic force of justice that had finally caught up with her. Outside, a car engine started in the distance. Victoria ran to the window, but the street was empty, bathed in orange streetlight. Still, she had the distinct feeling someone had been watching her house, waiting to see how she'd react to their message. The game had begun, and for the first time in her life, Victoria Sterling wasn't holding the winning hand. Victoria barely slept that night, jumping at every sound the old mansion made. When dawn finally broke through her bedroom windows, she felt like she'd aged years in a single evening. Her phone showed 17 missed calls from unknown numbers, but no voicemails. Just the digital equivalent of heavy breathing.
She was making coffee with shaking hands when the doorbell rang. Victoria froze, ceramic mug halfway to her lips. Through the security monitor, she saw a young woman in a professional suit holding a manila envelope. Mid-20s, auburn hair pulled back, wire-rimmed glasses. She looked like a law student. "Victoria Sterling?" The woman's voice was crisp, confident. "I have a delivery for you. Legal documents." "Leave them by the door." "Ma'am, I need a signature. It's regarding the Sterling v. Sterling divorce settlement." Victoria's stomach dropped. The divorce was final, the settlement already transferred. What could possibly need her signature now? She opened the door cautiously, keeping the chain lock engaged. "Who sent you?" "Hartman Cross and Associates. I'm Sarah Chen, junior paralegal." Chen. The name hit Victoria like a slap. "Are you related to Marcus Chen?" Sarah's smile faltered for just a moment. "I'm not sure I know what you mean, ma'am. Could you please sign for these documents?" Victoria's hands shook as she unchained the door. Sarah Chen looked nothing like Marcus. She was petite where he was tall, fair where he was dark. But something about her eyes, the way she held her head, triggered a memory Victoria couldn't quite grasp. "What kind of new evidence?" Victoria asked, signing the electronic pad.
I'm not authorized to discuss the details, but I believe it concerns discrepancies in financial disclosures and personal conduct during the marriage. Sarah's voice was perfectly neutral, but Victoria caught the emphasis on personal conduct. The envelope felt heavy in Victoria's hands. Official letterhead, proper legal seals. Everything looked legitimate. "Have a wonderful day, Mrs. Sterling." Sarah walked briskly to a black sedan parked in the circular drive. As she opened the car door, she turned back. "Oh, and congratulations on your pregnancy. 7 months along, isn't it? How exciting." Victoria had never mentioned the pregnancy to anyone outside her inner circle. She watched the sedan disappear down the street, then tore open the envelope with fumbling fingers. Inside were copies of bank records, hotel receipts, and photographs. Lots of photographs. Her affair with Marcus, documented in excruciating detail. Photos of them entering the Miami hotel together, room service receipts charged to Marcus's company credit card, even a restaurant bill from their last dinner together, dated exactly 8 months ago. But it was the final document that made Victoria's knees buckle. A paternity test request, pre-signed and notarized, requiring her immediate compliance. The accompanying letter was on official court letterhead. "Mrs. Sterling, new evidence suggests fraudulent misrepresentation during divorce proceedings. A paternity test is hereby ordered to determine the biological father of your unborn child. Failure to comply within 72 hours will result in immediate reversal of all settlement awards and potential criminal charges for fraud and perjury." Victoria sank onto her living room couch, papers scattered around her like fallen leaves. Someone had built an airtight case against her. They had evidence, documentation, legal authority. This wasn't blackmail, it was checkmate. Her phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello, Victoria." The voice was male, mature, with a slight accent she couldn't place. "I trust you've received our delivery." "Who is this?" "Someone who's been very interested in justice. Tell me, how does it feel to be hunted?" Victoria's throat felt raw. "What do you want?" "The same thing you wanted when you destroyed Adrian Sterling. Everything." The voice was calm, almost conversational. "Your house, your money, your reputation, your freedom." "This is insane. You can't..." "Can't what? Can't use the legal system to destroy someone's life? Can't manipulate evidence and buy testimony? Didn't you write the playbook, Victoria?" The man was right, and they both knew it. Every tactic being used against her was one she'd pioneered during her divorce. "I'll give you the money back," Victoria said desperately. "All of it. The house, the accounts, everything." "Oh, we're far past money now. This is about justice. About showing the world who Victoria Sterling really is." "Please, I'm pregnant. I'll lose everything. My child will have nothing." "Your child?" The voice turned cold. "You mean Marcus Chen's child, the child you're using as a weapon against an innocent man." Victoria's vision blurred with tears. "How do you know all this?" "I know because I've been watching you for 2 years, Victoria. Every lie you told, every life you destroyed, Every innocent person you crushed under your designer heels. I know because someone asked me to. Who? The line went quiet for a long moment. When the voice returned, it carried a weight that made Victoria's blood freeze. Your husband. Ex-husband. Adrian and I are divorced. No. Your real husband. The one whose heart you broke. The one whose child you're carrying. Victoria's world tilted. That's impossible. I was never married to Marcus. Not Marcus. Think harder. Think about the life you lived before you became a lawyer, before you decided money was more important than love. Images flashed through Victoria's mind like old film strips. College, a small wedding chapel in Vegas, a young man with kind eyes and big dreams, a marriage that lasted exactly 6 months before Victoria's ambition outgrew her patience. Daniel, she whispered. Hello, sweetheart. Victoria's phone slipped from nerveless fingers, clattering onto the marble floor. Daniel Morrison. Not Detective Robert Morrison. Daniel Morrison, her first husband, the boy she'd married at 22 and divorced at 23 when his startup failed and her law school acceptance came through. She changed her name back to Blackwood, moved across the country, built a new life. She thought she'd buried Daniel Morrison so deep he'd never surface again. But he'd found her. And somehow, impossibly, he knew everything. The house phone rang, its shrill tone echoing through the mansion. Victoria stumbled to answer it.
Surprised? Daniel's voice was warm with dark amusement. You always were good at forgetting inconvenient people, Victoria. But I never forgot you. Daniel, The paternity test is scheduled for tomorrow at 9 a.m. Don't be late. Oh, and Victoria, pack light. You won't be staying in my house much longer. His house. The words hit her like physical blows. One more thing, Daniel continued. That young woman who delivered the papers, Sarah Chen isn't Marcus's relative. She's mine. Our daughter, Victoria. The one you never knew existed because you were too busy playing queen of the corporate world to notice I'd remarried. The line went dead. Victoria stared at the phone, her world crumbling around her like a house of cards in a hurricane. Daniel wasn't just seeking revenge. He was reclaiming a life she'd stolen from him 25 years ago. And he had an army. Corrupt cops, legal professionals, even family members she'd never known existed. She was trapped in the web she'd woven, caught by the very tactics she'd perfected. And tomorrow, in less than 18 hours, a simple blood test would expose the final lie holding her stolen life together. Victoria pressed her hands to her belly and felt the baby kick, as if sensing the storm about to break over both their lives. The game wasn't just beginning. It was already over. She'd just been too arrogant to realize she'd been playing it for 25 years. Victoria spent the rest of the morning frantically calling every lawyer in the city. But word traveled fast in legal circles. By noon, she'd been turned down by 17 firms. The 18th lawyer, Mitchell Garrett, finally told her the truth. Victoria, nobody wants to touch this case. The evidence against you is overwhelming, and frankly, you burned a lot of bridges during the Sterling divorce. You made enemies of people who could have helped you. Mitchell, you owe me. I got you that partnership at Hoffman & Associates 5 years ago. And you nearly destroyed my career when you asked me to falsify documents for the Sterling case. I'm not going through that again. The line went dead. Victoria stared at her phone, realizing that her network of contacts, cultivated so carefully over the years, had turned against her. She was radioactive. Her doorbell rang again. This time the security monitor showed a familiar face. Detective Morrison, looking haggard and uncomfortable. Robert, thank God. Victoria opened the door quickly. Please tell me you found something. Morrison wouldn't meet her eyes. Victoria, I need to talk to you about last night. Of course, come in. I have more information about... No. Out here, on the porch. Something in his tone made Victoria's stomach clench. Morrison had always been confident, greedy, willing to bend rules for the right price. Now he looked nervous, scared. Robert, what's wrong?
He pulled out a tablet and showed her a video. Security footage from outside her house, time-stamped 3 months ago. In the video, Victoria was handing Morrison an envelope thick with cash, while he passed her a manila folder marked Confidential Sterling Surveillance. "Where did you get this?" Victoria's voice was barely a whisper. "Someone sent it to my captain this morning, along with bank records showing every payment you've made to me over the past 2 years. Morrison's hands shook as he put the tablet away. "Victoria, I'm finished. Internal investigation is opening. My pension, my career, everything's gone. We can fight this. Claim the video was doctored. With what lawyer and what money?" Morrison's laugh was bitter. "The same person who sent this to my captain also sent copies to the district attorney, the FBI, and the local news. Channel 7 is running the story at 6. Victoria felt the walls closing in around her. Daniel wasn't just attacking her. He was systematically destroying everyone who'd helped her. "Robert, I'll make this right. I have money. Had money. Past tense." Morrison pulled out a piece of paper. "This is a cease and desist order. All your assets are frozen pending investigation. You can't access your accounts, can't sell anything, can't even use your credit cards." Victoria grabbed the paper with trembling hands. Official court letterhead, a judge's signature she recognized, Judge Henrietta Walsh, who'd presided over her divorce from Adrian, the same judge she'd carefully cultivated with donations to her re-election campaign. "Henrietta signed this? She's been in my pocket for years." "Yeah, well, apparently she got tired of being there." Morrison stepped back toward his car. "Victoria, I'm sorry, but I can't help you anymore. Whatever you did to piss this guy off, you need to fix it, because he's not just destroying your life, he's destroying everyone who ever helped you." As Morrison drove away, Victoria's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Watching the news tonight should be interesting. Channel 7 at 6. Don't miss it. ... D." Victoria ran inside and called her accountant, her financial advisor, even her insurance agent. Every conversation was the same. Accounts frozen, policies suspended, services terminated. In less than 24 hours, Daniel had reduced her from a multimillionaire to a pauper. But it was the call to her obstetrician that broke her completely.
"I'm sorry, Mrs. Sterling, but your insurance has been canceled," Dr. Elizabeth Hampton said gently. "We all need payment in full for any future appointments." "Elizabeth, I'm 7 months pregnant. You can't just—" "I understand this is difficult, but there are other options. Public health clinics, charity hospitals. I can give you some referrals." Victoria hung up and stared at her reflection in the hallway mirror. Designer clothes, perfect makeup, $1 million house. But underneath it all, she was still the scared 23-year-old who divorced Daniel Morrison because she couldn't handle being married to a failure. Except Daniel wasn't the failure. I was. Her laptop chimed with an incoming email. The sender was listed as a friend, but Victoria knew who it was. "Victoria, by now you're realizing the scope of what's happening to you. Every ally you cultivated through bribery and manipulation has been exposed. Every illegal favor you called in has been documented. Every lie you told is about to become public knowledge. But I'm not unreasonable. I'm willing to make you a deal. Tomorrow morning, you'll take the paternity test as ordered. When the results prove that your child belongs to Marcus Chen, you'll sign a full confession detailing every crime you committed during your marriage to Adrian Sterling. You'll return every penny you stole, formally apologize to Adrian in front of the media, and accept whatever criminal charges the district attorney sees fit to file. In exchange, I'll ensure your child is well cared for after your inevitable incarceration. My daughter Sarah is an excellent attorney. She'll make sure the baby goes to loving parents who can provide a stable home. You have until 6 p.m. today to respond. After that, the deal is off the table. Fondly, Daniel. P.S. You might be wondering how I found you after all these years. It's simple. I never stopped looking. Love does that to a person. You wouldn't understand. Victoria read the email 3 times,
each pass making her feel smaller and more trapped. Daniel wasn't just seeking revenge, he was methodically dismantling her life with the precision of a surgeon. And the worst part was that he was right. She had destroyed innocent people for money and power. She had lied and manipulated and stolen. But she wasn't ready to surrender. Victoria grabbed her burner phone and called Marcus again. This time, he answered on the first ring. "I was wondering when you'd call back." "Marcus, I need your help. Daniel Morrison is—" "I know who Daniel Morrison is, Victoria. Did you really think I wouldn't research my business partner's wife? I knew about your first marriage the day we started our affair." Victoria's blood turned cold. "You knew?" "I knew everything. Your real name, your college records, your quickie Vegas wedding and subsequent divorce. I even knew that Daniel had become a tech security consultant specializing in corporate espionage." Marcus's voice carried that familiar tone of amused superiority. "What I didn't know was that he'd spent 20 years planning to destroy you." "Then help me. You're the father of this child. You have a responsibility." "Do I? Because according to my lawyers, I never acknowledged paternity. There are no documents, no legal records, nothing." Tying me? Tying me to that pregnancy? And tomorrow's blood test will prove the child isn't Adrian's, not that it's mine. Victoria felt like she was drowning. "Marcus, please. We were together for 6 months. We talked about nothing that mattered. You were married to a man you were actively destroying. I was screwing my business partner's wife for sport. Neither of us was planning a future together. But the baby will be better off without either of us as parents." His voice softened slightly. "Victoria, you're not a mother. You're a predator who happens to be pregnant. The kindest thing you could do for that child is disappear." The line went dead. Victoria stared at the phone, realizing that Marcus had been playing a game even longer than Daniel. He knew about her past, knew about Daniel's capabilities, and still chosen to have an affair with her. Maybe he'd even wanted this outcome. Victoria walked to her living room window and stared out at the sprawling grounds of the mansion she had fought so hard to win. In the distance, she could see news vans setting up on the street. Word was already leaking about tonight's broadcast. Her phone buzzed with another text. "The vans are just the beginning. By tomorrow morning, this will be the biggest story in the city. Pregnant socialite exposed as serial marriage fraud. Think of the headlines. D." Victoria closed her eyes and tried to think like the ruthless lawyer she used to be. There had to be an angle, a loophole, some way to turn this around. But every avenue she explored led back to the same conclusion. Daniel had her completely trapped. Unless... Victoria opened her laptop and began typing a response to Daniel's email. Her fingers moved slowly, carefully, crafting each word with the precision she once used to draft multi-million-dollar contracts. "Daniel, you've made your point. I hurt you, and now you're hurting me. But this isn't about justice. It's about revenge. And revenge is a luxury neither of us can afford. I have a counterproposal. Tomorrow morning, I'll take the paternity test and accept the results. But instead of a public confession, I want a private meeting. Just you and me. No lawyers, no witnesses, no recording devices. Let me look you in the eye and explain what really happened 25 years ago. If after our conversation you still want to destroy me, I'll sign whatever confession you want. But you owe me that much. One honest conversation between the people we used to be. I'll be at the Riverside Park gazebo at midnight tonight, the place where you proposed to me 26 years ago. If you don't show, I'll know you're just another bitter ex-husband hiding behind lawyers and private investigators. Prove to me that somewhere inside the man orchestrating this revenge campaign is the Daniel Morrison I once loved. Victoria. P.S. I never stopped loving you. That's why I had to leave. Victoria hit send before she could change her mind. It was a desperate gambit,
playing on emotions that might not even exist anymore. But he was the only card she had left. Outside, the news vans multiplied like cancer cells. In 6 hours, her reputation would be destroyed. In 18 hours, her pregnancy fraud would be exposed. In 48 hours, she'd probably be in jail. But tonight, for 1 hour, she'd have the chance to face the man whose life she'd destroyed and try to remember why she'd loved him enough to marry him in the first place. It wasn't much of a plan, but it was all she had. At 11:47 p.m., Victoria stood in the shadows of Riverside Park, her breath forming small clouds in the cool night air. The gazebo looked exactly as it had 26 years ago. White painted wood, Victorian scrollwork, surrounded by ancient oak trees. This was where Daniel had gotten down on one knee with a ring he'd saved 3 months to buy. This was where she'd said yes before her ambition taught her that love was a luxury she couldn't afford. She'd been waiting for 20 minutes, beginning to think Daniel wouldn't show, when she heard footsteps on the gravel path. He emerged from the darkness like a ghost from her past, but the years had been kind to him. Daniel Morrison at 50 was lean and confident, with silver threading through hair that had once been sandy brown. His eyes, those calculating eyes she'd recognized in the pizza delivery man, carried the weight of 2 decades of success. "You came," Victoria said softly. "Did you really think I wouldn't? After all this time, all this planning?" Daniel stopped at the gazebo steps, not coming closer. "Though I have to admit, I'm curious what you think you can say that would change anything." Victoria stepped into the center of the gazebo, where the streetlight cast her in a pale circle of illumination. "You want to know what really happened 25 years ago? Why I really left?" "I know why you left. My startup failed, your law school acceptance came through, and you decided you'd rather be rich than happy. That's what I let you believe. It was easier than telling you the truth." "What truth?" "I was pregnant, Daniel. When I left you, I was carrying your child." The silence stretched between them like a taut wire. Daniel's face went through a series of emotions: shock, confusion, and finally cold anger. "That's impossible." "I was 6 weeks along when I filed for divorce. I found out the day before my law school interview." Tears started flowing down Victoria's cheeks. "I had a choice: tell you about the baby and watch you try to hold our marriage together out of obligation, or what? Or have an abortion and give us both the chance at the futures we deserved. So I did. I terminated the pregnancy and walked away, and I've regretted it every single day since." Daniel stared at her for a long moment, then began to laugh. It was a cold, bitter sound that made Victoria's blood freeze. "You're lying." "I'm not. I have the medical records. I kept them all these years, like some kind of penance." I pulled a folded paper from her coat pocket. "St. Mary's Hospital, April 15th, 1999. Voluntary termination at 8 weeks. Daniel took the paper with shaking hands. In the streetlight, Victoria could see his face go pale as he read. "You killed our baby." "I made an impossible choice. We were both so young, so broke. You were devastated about the startup failing. I couldn't add an unwanted pregnancy to your burdens." "Unwanted?" Daniel's voice was deadly quiet. "You think I wouldn't have wanted our child?" "I think you would have wanted it for all the wrong reasons. Duty, obligation, some misguided sense of honor, but not because you were ready to be a father." Daniel crumpled the paper in his fist. "So you made that choice for both of us. You decided our baby's life wasn't worth the inconvenience."
It wasn't about inconvenience. It was about survival. I was 23 years old, Daniel. I had nothing. No money, no family support, no career prospects. What was I supposed to do? Drop out of law school to raise a baby in poverty while you figured out your next business venture? You were supposed to trust me. Daniel's composure finally cracked. You were supposed to believe that we could figure it out together. Instead, you murdered our child and disappeared like I meant nothing to you. Victoria flinched at the word murdered, but pressed on. I did it because I loved you too much to trap you in a life you weren't ready for. Love? Daniel stepped closer, his eyes blazing. You don't know what that word means. Love is sacrifice. Love is commitment. Love is trusting the person you married to help carry your burdens. His voice dropped to a whisper. Love is not killing your husband's child and lying about it for 25 years. I never lied about it. I just never told you. Seemed difference. Daniel pulled out his phone. You want to know about love, Victoria? Let me tell you about real love. He scrolled through photos and held the screen toward her. A beautiful woman with dark hair and kind eyes, surrounded by 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. This is Elena, my wife of 22 years. These are my children, David, Michael, and Sarah. Sarah Chen, the paralegal who delivered your papers. Daniel's voice softened with genuine affection. Elena couldn't have children of her own due to a medical condition. We spent years trying, going through treatments, facing disappointment after disappointment, but we never gave up on each other. Victoria stared at the photo, understanding dawning like a cold sunrise. We finally adopted Sarah when she was 3. Her parents died in a car accident, and she had no family. The boys came to us through the foster system when they were babies. Daniel put the phone away. Elena and I built a family together through patience, commitment, and genuine love. Everything you and I could have had if you hadn't decided our baby was disposable. Daniel, the irony is perfect, isn't it? You're pregnant again, 25 years later, carrying another man's child while married to someone else. And once again, you're treating pregnancy like a weapon instead of a blessing. Victoria felt like the ground was falling away beneath her feet. How did you find out about the abortion? I didn't know until tonight. I suspected something had happened, the way you left so suddenly, so completely, but I thought maybe you'd had a miscarriage and couldn't bear to tell me. Daniel's laugh was hollow. I spent years wondering if there was something I could have done differently, some way I could have made you stay. There wasn't. It was my choice. Yes, it was. Just like everything else in your life has been a choice. You chose to abort our baby. You chose to lie to Adrian about the paternity of this one. You chose to destroy innocent people for money and power. Daniel stepped back, creating distance between them. Do you know what the worst part is, Victoria? What? I came here tonight hoping you'd finally tell me the truth about why you left. Some part of me, the stupid, romantic part that never quite got over you, hoped there was a good reason. A reason that would make sense of 25 years of wondering what I did wrong. And now you know. Now I know that the woman I loved never existed. You were always exactly who you are now. Selfish, calculating, and willing to destroy anything that inconveniences you. Daniel turned to leave, then paused at the top of the gazebo steps. The paternity test is still happening tomorrow. The confession, the asset forfeiture, all of it. But I want you to know this isn't about revenge anymore. It's about justice for every life you've destroyed, including the one you destroyed 25 years ago in that hospital room. What about the baby I'm carrying now? You said Sarah would help find adoptive parents. Daniel looked back at her with something that might have been pity. I lied, just like you've been lying your entire adult life. That child will go into the foster system like thousands of other unwanted babies. Maybe they'll get lucky and find parents who actually want them. Maybe they won't. You can't do that. You can't punish an innocent child for my mistakes. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm simply removing myself and my family from your toxic orbit. What happens to your child after you're incarcerated is no longer my concern. Daniel walked away, his footsteps echoing off the gazebo walls. Victoria called after him, her voice breaking. I'm sorry. Daniel, I'm so sorry. He didn't look back. Victoria sank onto the gazebo bench where Daniel had proposed 26 years ago with her hands pressed to her belly. The baby was moving frantically, as if sensing her distress. I'm sorry to the child inside her. I'm so sorry for all of it. For the first time in 25 years, Victoria Sterling cried for the baby she'd lost and the man she'd driven away. She cried for Adrian, whose life she'd destroyed for money and power. She cried for the unborn child who would pay the price for her choices. But mostly, she cried for the young woman who'd walked into that hospital 25 years ago and emerged as someone she no longer recognized. Someone who'd spent decades running from a decision that had shaped every relationship, every choice, every moment of her life since.
The gazebo suddenly felt haunted by the ghosts of all the people she might have been if she'd made different choices. All the lives that might have been lived, all the love that might have been shared. Victoria's phone buzzed with a final text from Daniel. The offer for confession and cooperation is withdrawn. See you in court. She was alone now, truly alone, with nowhere left to run and no one left to manipulate. Tomorrow would bring the paternity test, the exposure, the collapse of everything she'd built on lies. But tonight, in this gazebo where her adult life had really begun, Victoria finally understood the difference between love and possession, between justice and revenge, between the life she'd chosen and the one she'd thrown away. It was 25 years too late for understanding, but it was all she had left. Victoria returned to the mansion at 2:17 a.m. to find every light in the house blazing. Her heart stopped when she saw Adrian's Tesla parked in her circular driveway. Ex-husband number 2. This night just keeps getting better. She found him in the kitchen, sitting at her marble island with a cup of coffee, looking remarkably calm for a man whose life she'd systematically destroyed. Adrian Sterling at 45 was still handsome in that understated tech executive way. Wire-rim glasses, simple sweater, the kind of quiet confidence that came from rebuilding an empire from nothing. "Hello, Victoria. How did you get in?" Her voice came out shakier than she intended. "The same security company that installed your system also installed mine. Turns out loyalty is something you can actually buy. You just have to pay more than your competitors." Adrian smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. "Also, this is technically still my house until the appeals process is complete." Victoria's legs felt weak. She gripped the doorframe for support. "What are you doing here?" "I wanted to see how you're handling the news." "What news?" Adrian pulled out his phone and showed her the screen. A news article from the Seattle Times, posted an hour ago. "Tech mogul Adrian Sterling vindicated in divorce fraud investigation." Victoria's vision blurred as she read the headline, but Adrian continued speaking in that same conversational tone. "Turns out your friend Daniel Morrison is quite thorough. He didn't just collect evidence about your current situation, he went back and reinvestigated our entire divorce. Found some interesting discrepancies in the surveillance photos you used to frame me for adultery." Those photos were legitimate. Were they? Adrian swiped to another article. According to this forensic analysis, they were composites. Very sophisticated ones, but composites nonetheless. The woman I was supposedly kissing? She's an actress Daniel hired through a talent agency. The hotel room? Rented by your private investigator, not me. Victoria sank into a chair across from him, her pregnant belly making the movement awkward. "You can't prove any of that." "I don't have to. Daniel already did." Adrian's voice remained maddeningly calm. 24 hours ago, I was a disgraced ex-husband living in a studio apartment, working as a freelance consultant because no reputable company would hire me. Tonight, I'm the victim of an elaborate fraud scheme, and every major news outlet in the country is running the story. Adrian, Do you know what the worst part was, Victoria? Not the money. I can earn that back. Not even the house. It's just a building. The worst part was watching people I'd known for 20 years cross the street to avoid talking to me, watching my business partners pretend they'd never met me, having my own mother ask if the allegations were true. Victoria felt tears starting again. I never meant for it to go that far. Yes, you did. You calculated every single consequence. You wanted to destroy me completely so I'd never have the resources to fight back. Adrian leaned forward. But you made one mistake, Victoria. You assumed I'd give up. You did give up. You signed the settlement papers. I signed them because my lawyer advised me that fighting would cost more than I had left. But I never stopped investigating. I never stopped gathering evidence. And when Daniel Morrison contacted me 6 months ago with his research, I realized we could help each other. Victoria's blood turned to ice water. You've been working with Daniel for 6 months? Oh, Victoria, you really don't understand, do you? Daniel Morrison didn't just find me by accident. I hired him. The kitchen seemed to tilt around Victoria. What? 3 months after our divorce was finalized, I hired Secure Solutions Group to investigate irregularities in the proceedings. Daniel Morrison is the best corporate investigation consultant on the West Coast. When he discovered your connection to him, we realized this was bigger than just one fraudulent divorce. You orchestrated all of this? We orchestrated justice. There's a difference. Adrian pulled out a tablet and began scrolling through documents. Would you like to see what 20 months of professional investigation looks like? We have your affair with Marcus documented from the very first hotel meeting. We have recordings of you coaching your private investigator on how to stage the photos that framed me. We have bank records showing every bribe you paid to Detective Morrison, Judge Walsh, and half a dozen other officials.
That's illegal surveillance. Actually, it's not. Everything we collected was either public record or gathered through legitimate investigation techniques. The kind of investigation you should have expected when you defrauded a man who built his fortune on data security. Victoria felt like she was drowning. So the pizza delivery, the threatening notes, all of it was just theater? Daniel's idea. He said you'd respond better to psychological pressure than legal pressure. Something about understanding how your mind works. Adrian shrugged. He was right. You called all your corrupt contacts, activated all your illegal networks, made our job much easier. And the paternity test? Oh, that's real. We need definitive proof that you committed fraud during our marriage. The baby you're carrying is the final piece of evidence. Adrian's expression softened slightly. For what it's worth, I'm sorry that child got caught up in this. They don't deserve to pay for your choices. Victoria pressed her hands to her belly, feeling the baby move restlessly. What happens to the baby? That's not up to me anymore. Child Protective Services will make that determination based on your circumstances. Adrian finished his coffee and stood, which brings me to why I'm really here. There's more? There's always more with you, Victoria. You can't help yourself. Adrian walked to the kitchen window and stared out at the grounds. This house has been in my family for 3 generations. My grandfather built the original structure in 1952. My father expanded it in the 80s. I renovated it for us when we got married. Adrian, every room holds memories of my life before I met you. Christmas mornings, birthday parties, family gatherings. My mother died in the master bedroom upstairs. I held her hand while she took her last breath in the same room where you've been sleeping for the past 18 months. Victoria's throat felt raw. I didn't know. You never asked. In 2 years of marriage, you never once asked about my family history, my childhood memories, what this place meant to me. You saw square footage and market value. I saw home. I'm sorry. No, you're not. You're scared. There's a difference. Adrian picked up his keys from the counter. The house reverts to me at noon today when the fraud judgment is finalized. You have until then to pack your personal belongings. Where am I supposed to go? I don't have any money, any friends. You should have thought about that before you decided to destroy everyone who ever loved you. Adrian walked toward the door, then paused. You know what the saddest part is, Victoria? For about 6 months after we got married, I actually believed we could be happy together. I thought your ambition and my resources could build something beautiful. We could have been, if I just what? Enabled your sociopathy? Helped you destroy more innocent people? I've spent the last 20 months in therapy, Victoria, learning to trust people again, learning to forgive myself for being fooled by you. Do you know what my therapist told me?
Victoria didn't answer. She said that people like you don't change because you don't see anything wrong with what you do. You see consequences as unfair persecution instead of natural results of your choices. Adrian's voice was sad now, tired. Even now, sitting there pregnant and alone, you're probably planning your next manipulation instead of accepting responsibility for the lives you've destroyed. Victoria wanted to deny it, but she couldn't. Even as Adrian spoke, part of her mind was calculating angles, looking for leverage, searching for some way to turn this situation to her advantage. The paternity test is at 9 a.m. Daniel will meet you at the clinic. After that, there's a hearing at 2 p.m. where you'll be formally charged with divorce fraud, perjury, and conspiracy. Your bail will be set based on flight risk assessment. And if I run? Then you'll be a fugitive giving birth in county jail. Is that really the future you want for your child? Adrian left through the front door, and Victoria heard his Tesla pulling out of the driveway. She sat alone in the kitchen of the house she'd fought so hard to steal, surrounded by luxury that had brought her no moment of genuine happiness. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Eviction notice served. You have 9 hours and 43 minutes. Don't forget to pack the baby clothes. You'll need them where you're going. -D. Victoria looked around the kitchen one last time. The imported marble counters, the professional-grade appliances, the crystal chandelier that cost more than most people's cars. All of it acquired through lies, manipulation, and the systematic destruction of innocent lives.
She thought about Daniel's family photo, Elena and the 3 adopted children, all of them smiling with genuine happiness. She thought about Adrian's words, about Christmas mornings and family memories in this house. She thought about the baby growing inside her, destined to be born into chaos and uncertainty. For the first time in her adult life, Victoria Sterling understood what she'd really been chasing all these years. Not wealth or status or power, but the kind of love and security that Daniel had found with Elena, that Adrian's family had shared in this house, that she'd thrown away 25 years ago when she chose ambition over connection. She'd spent decades running from the consequences of one terrible choice, only to make that same choice again and again, each time destroying more lives, creating more enemies, building a hollow empire of lies that was always destined to collapse. The baby kicked hard against her ribs, and Victoria whispered into the empty kitchen, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything." But sorry wasn't enough. It had never been enough. And now it was too late for anything else. Victoria spent the remaining hours before dawn packing her life into 3 suitcases. Designer clothes, jewelry, photo albums from a past that felt like someone else's story. With each item she folded away, the weight of her choices pressed heavier on her chest. At 8:30 a.m., she stood in the marble foyer one last time, her hand resting on her swollen belly. The baby had been quiet since her conversation with Adrian, as if sensing the storm about to break over both their lives. Her phone buzzed. Daniel. "Car's waiting outside. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." The black sedan in her driveway looked like a hearse. Victoria climbed into the back seat, finding Daniel already waiting for her. Up close, in daylight, she could see the toll the years had taken on her. Lines around her eyes, gray threading her temples, hands that shook slightly as he checked his phone. "Second thoughts?" she asked. "About what?" "About destroying the mother of your grandchild." Daniel's laugh was hollow. "That child isn't my grandchild, Victoria. It's Marcus Chen's, and after today, that will be a matter of public record." The clinic was a sterile professional building in the medical district. Victoria had driven past it hundreds of times without giving it a thought. Now it loomed like a courthouse where her final judgment would be rendered. Dr. Patricia Hendricks was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and steady hands. She explained the procedure with clinical detachment. A simple blood draw from Victoria,
Results available within hours due to expedited processing. The court order requires presence of witnesses, Dr. Hendricks said, consulting her clipboard. Mr. Morrison, you're listed as the legal representative? Daniel nodded, representing the interests of the Sterling estate in matters of paternity fraud. Victoria winced at the formal language. Everything about this moment felt designed to strip away her humanity, to reduce her to a legal problem that needed solving. Mrs. Sterling, are you ready? Victoria extended her arm, feeling the familiar pinch of the needle. Her blood flowed into the vial, dark red evidence that would destroy what remained of her carefully constructed life. Results will be available by noon, Dr. Hendricks said, labeling the vial with clinical efficiency. The court has requested expedited genetic analysis. In the waiting room afterwards, Victoria found herself alone with Daniel for the first time since the gazebo. The silence stretched between them like a chasm carved by 25 years of secrets and lies. I need you to know something, Victoria said. Victoria, don't. That baby I lost. Our baby. She pressed her hands to her belly. Not a day has passed that I haven't wondered who they would have become, what color their eyes would have been, whether they'd have your stubborn streak or my ruthless ambition. Daniel's composure cracked slightly. Stop. I named her Sarah. In my mind, I always thought of her as Sarah. And when I saw your daughter's name on those legal papers, Victoria's voice broke. I thought maybe the universe was giving me a sign, a chance to make things right. You can't make this right. Some choices don't get do-overs. I know that now. But I need you to understand. I didn't leave because I didn't love you. I left because I loved you too much to watch you sacrifice your dreams for my mistakes. Our mistakes, our child, our dreams. Daniel's voice was thick with emotion. You decided all of that alone. I was 23 and terrified. I thought I was protecting you. From what? From being a father? From building a family together? Victoria looked out into the waiting room window at the parking lot where ordinary people were living ordinary lives, unaware that just inside this building, the final act of a 25-year tragedy was playing out. From trapped. Like my mother was. Like her mother was. Generation after generation of women who gave up everything for children they couldn't afford and men who couldn't provide.
So, you chose to become someone who takes instead of gives. Someone who destroys instead of builds. I chose wrong. I've been choosing wrong for 25 years. Daniel pulled out his phone and showed her a photo. Alina in a hospital bed, holding a newborn Sarah. His face was transformed with joy, exhaustion, and overwhelming love. This is what love looks like, Victoria. Not the careful calculations and strategic manipulations you call love. This is what you threw away. Victoria stared at the photo, seeing the family she might have had if she'd been brave enough to trust and love instead of fear. I want to make a deal with you, she said. Daniel put his phone away. You're in no position to make deals. This isn't about me. It's about the baby I'm carrying. Marcus's baby. A baby who doesn't deserve to pay for the sins of 3 adults who couldn't figure out how to love responsibly. Victoria took a shaky breath. I'll sign whatever confession you want. I'll return every penny I stole from Adrian. I'll serve whatever sentence they give me. But I want you to adopt this child. Daniel stared at her. What? You and Elena. You've built a beautiful family with children who needed homes. This baby will need a home too, especially with me in prison and Marcus refusing responsibility. Victoria, I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm asking you to be the father you would have been to our daughter, the father this child will need." Daniel was quiet for a long moment, his hands clasped in his lap. When he spoke, his voice was softer than it had been in days. "Alina and I were too old to raise a newborn. We're in our 50s, Victoria. Sarah's in law school, the boys are in high school. We're looking forward to being grandparents someday, not starting over with midnight feedings. Then help me find someone who will love this child the way you loved Sarah and David and Michael. Someone who will give them the life I can't." Victoria reached into her purse and pulled out a thick envelope. "This is everything I have left, about $50,000 in cash that I kept for emergencies. It's not much, but it's enough to hire a good adoption lawyer, to make sure this baby goes to a family who wants them." Daniel looked at the envelope like it might explode. "Why would you trust me with this?" "Because despite everything I did to you, despite all the ways I failed you, you're still the man I married 26 years ago. The man who proposed in that gazebo with a ring he'd saved 3 months to buy. The man who would have loved our daughter unconditionally." Daniel took the envelope with trembling hands. "I can't promise anything. I'm not asking for promises. I'm asking for mercy for this child who never asked to be conceived in deception and born into chaos." Dr. Hendricks appeared in the doorway, clipboard in hand. "The results are ready." Victoria stood, her heart hammering against her ribs. In moments, the final lie would be exposed. The last secret would be revealed. The reckoning would be complete. "Whatever happens next," she said to Daniel, "I want you to know loving you was the last honest thing I did. Everything that came after was just me running from that truth." Daniel looked at her with something that might have been the ghost of the love they'd once shared. "The tragedy isn't that you left, Victoria. It's that you never came back." They followed Dr. Hendricks down the hallway toward the truth that would set them both free and destroy everything Victoria had left. Dr. Hendricks led them to a small conference room where Adrian was already waiting, flanked by 2 people Victoria didn't recognize. A woman in her 30s with Elena's kind eyes, and a man in an expensive suit who radiated legal authority. "Mrs. Sterling, Mr. Morrison, please have a seat," Dr. Hendricks said, settling behind the conference table with a manila folder. "I have the paternity test results." Victoria's hands shook as she sat down. The baby was moving restlessly as if sensing the tension in the room. "Before we proceed," the man in the suit said, "I need to introduce myself. I'm David Morrison, Daniel's son, and I'm representing the Morrison family's interests in this matter. This is Sarah Chen Morrison, my sister, who will be handling the adoption proceedings." Victoria's world tilted. "Your daughter?"
Adoptive daughter, Daniel corrected, but daughter nonetheless. She's been working on this case pro bono, as a favor to her family. Sarah leaned forward, her expression compassionate but professional. "Mrs. Sterling, before Dr. Hendricks shares the results, I need you to understand the legal implications. Regardless of paternity, you'll be facing criminal charges for fraud, perjury, and conspiracy. However, your cooperation today could influence sentencing. I understand." Dr. Hendricks opened the folder. "The genetic analysis is conclusive. The child you're carrying is not biologically related to Adrian Sterling." Adrian closed his eyes, and Victoria saw relief wash over his face like a tide. Whatever small part of him had wondered, hoped, feared, it was finally put to rest. "However," Dr. Hendricks continued, "there's something unusual about these results." Victoria's stomach clenched. "What do you mean?"
"We ran the sample against multiple genetic markers, including those provided by Mr. Chen's legal team. The child you're carrying is not biologically related to Marcus Chen either." The room fell silent. Victoria stared at Dr. Hendricks, her mind struggling to process the words. "That's impossible," she whispered.
Genetic testing doesn't lie, Mrs. Sterling. This child's biological father is someone else entirely. Victoria's vision blurred. She thought back frantically. 8 months ago? 9 months ago? Marcus in Miami, yes, but before that? After that? Oh, God, she breathed. Daniel leaned forward. Victoria! The memory hit her like a physical blow. 3 weeks after Miami, before she'd slept with Adrian to establish the pregnancy timeline, she'd been drunk, devastated about something. A case she'd lost, a client who'd fired her. She'd gone to O'Malley's pub downtown, the dive bar where she and Daniel used to meet during their brief marriage. And there, sitting at their old table, had been James. "Who's James?" Sarah asked. Victoria looked at Daniel, seeing understanding dawn in his eyes. "James Patterson, the bartender from O'Malley's, the one who used to let us stay after closing." "Victoria, no!" "I was drunk, Daniel, so drunk I could barely stand. I just lost the Hartman case, and I felt like everything was falling apart. I went to O'Malley's because it was the last place I'd been happy." Daniel's face had gone pale. "James Patterson died last year. Liver failure." "I know. I saw his obituary." 3 weeks after Miami, I went to O'Malley's and James was there for his last shift before entering rehab. We talked about old times, about you, about the mistakes we'd both made, and I was so drunk and so lonely and so desperate to feel connected to something real. Sarah was typing rapidly on her laptop. "James Patterson, age 52, worked at O'Malley's pub for 15 years, died of complications from alcoholism." She looked up. "Mrs. Sterling, you're saying you had sexual contact with a man who died 4 months before your paternity fraud allegations?" "One night. One terrible, desperate night with a man who'd been kind to me when I was young and stupid and in love. He was going to rehab the next day. Said he wanted to get clean, maybe find someone to love him the way you loved me, Daniel. And I took advantage of his loneliness the same way I've taken advantage of everyone." Adrian spoke for the first time since the results were announced. "So the child has no living father?" "No living biological father," Sarah corrected. "But that doesn't change the legal situation. You still defrauded Mr. Sterling, Mrs. Sterling. You still committed perjury during divorce proceedings." "I know. I'll sign whatever confession you want. But please, this baby." She looked at Daniel with desperate hope. "James was a good man who made bad choices, just like me, just like all of us. This child is the last piece of him in the world." Daniel sat in stunned silence for several moments. Finally, he spoke. "James Patterson was at our wedding." Victoria nodded. "He was your best man. He loved you almost as much as I did. Used to tell me I was the luckiest man alive. After you left, he'd ask about you every time I came into O'Malley's. Never judged you for leaving, never said a word against you. He told me that night that he'd never married because he never found someone who made him feel the way watching us together had made him feel. Said we'd set the bar too high for mere mortals." Sarah and David exchanged glances. Adrian leaned back in his chair, looking exhausted. "Mrs. Sterling," David said carefully, "you're telling us that this child was conceived during a one-night encounter with your ex-husband's deceased best friend." "Yes." "A man who died 4 months ago, leaving no family, no estate, no legal complications for adoption proceedings?" Victoria nodded. Sarah pulled out her phone and stepped away from the table, speaking in low tones. After several minutes, she returned. "I've been in contact with Child Protective Services and the adoption agency we work with. Given the unusual circumstances, no living biological father, mother facing incarceration, no other family members, they're willing to expedite placement if we can find suitable adoptive parents." Victoria looked at Daniel with hope and desperation. "Please." Daniel stood and walked to the window, staring out at the parking lot. When he turned back, his eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Elena and I talked about this last night, about what we'd do if circumstances were different. She said something that's been haunting me all morning." "What did she say?" Victoria whispered.
She said that sometimes God gives you second chances in ways you never expect. That maybe this baby isn't Marcus's or Adrian's or even mine, but maybe they're meant to be ours in a different way. Victoria's heart stopped. "Daniel?" Elena wants to meet with you. Before any decisions are made, she wants to look you in the eye and understand what kind of person is asking us to raise her child. And if she says no? Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Then we'll find someone else who will love this baby the way they deserve to be loved. But Victoria, he met her eyes across the table. If we do this, if Elena agrees to this, you have to understand, this child will be ours, not yours. You'll have no rights, no contact, no involvement in their life. I understand. Do you? Because this isn't about assuaging your guilt or finding redemption through some grand gesture. This is about what's best for a child who never asked to be born into this mess. Victoria pressed both hands to her belly, feeling the baby move beneath her palms. 2 months ago, I would have seen this child as a weapon, a tool to manipulate and control. But lying here in this room, facing the truth about everything I've done, she looked up at Daniel with tears streaming down her face. This baby is the only good thing I've created in 25 years, the only legacy that isn't built on lies and destruction. Sarah cleared her throat. Mrs. Sterling, there's one more thing you need to know. The district attorney has agreed to a plea bargain. In exchange for your full cooperation and the return of all fraudulently obtained assets, you'll serve 18 months in minimum security prison with possibility of parole in 12 months. That's very generous, Victoria said. It is, especially considering the alternative was 5 to 10 years. Sarah slid a document across the table. But there's a condition. You sign away all parental rights to the child you're carrying. Complete termination. No contact, no visitation, no legal standing whatsoever. I understand. Do you? Because this isn't about assuaging your guilt or finding redemption through some grand gesture. This is about what's best for a child who never asked to be born into this mess. Victoria pressed both hands to her belly, feeling the baby move beneath her palms. 2 months ago, I would have seen this child as a weapon, a tool to manipulate and control. But lying here in this room, facing the truth about everything I've done, she looked up at Daniel with tears streaming down her face. This baby is the only good thing I've created in 25 years, the only legacy that isn't built on lies and destruction. Sarah cleared her throat. Mrs. Sterling, there's one more thing you need to know. The district attorney has agreed to a plea bargain. In exchange for your full cooperation and the return of all fraudulently obtained assets, you'll serve 18 months in minimum security prison with possibility of parole in 12 months. That's very generous, Victoria said. It is, especially considering the alternative was 5 to 10 years. Sarah slid a document across the table. But there's a condition. You sign away all parental rights to the child you're carrying. Complete termination. No contact, no visitation, no legal standing whatsoever. Victoria stared at the document. Signing it would make her disappear from her child's life before they were even born. But not signing it meant years in prison with the baby going into foster care, potentially never finding the stable, loving home they deserved. Where do I sign? Daniel placed his hand over hers as she reached for the pen. Victoria, are you sure? 25 years ago, I made a choice that destroyed our family before it could begin. Today, I'm making a choice that might help create a new family from the ashes of all my mistakes. She looked at each person around the table. Yes, I'm sure. Victoria signed the document with steady hands, each letter of her name feeling like a small death and a small rebirth. Adrian spoke quietly. For what it's worth, Victoria, I think you're doing the right thing. It's 25 years too late, but yes, I think I finally am. Daniel stood and extended his hand. Elena's waiting at home. Are you ready to meet the woman who might raise your child? Victoria took his hand and let him help her to her feet. I'm ready. As they left the conference room, Victoria felt something she hadn't experienced in decades, the lightness that comes from finally telling the truth, even when that truth destroys everything you thought you wanted. The baby kicked gently against her ribs, and Victoria whispered, It's going to be okay, little one. You're going to have the family I never learned how to create. Elena Morrison was nothing like Victoria had expected. She was beautiful in the way that real life is beautiful,
laugh lines around her eyes, silver streaks in her dark hair, and flour on her apron from the cookies she was baking when they arrived. Her home was warm and lived in, filled with family photos and children's artwork, and the comfortable chaos of a life built on love rather than acquisition. "Victoria," Elena said, embracing her like an old friend, "I'm so glad you came." They sat in Elena's kitchen while Daniel and his children gave them privacy. Elena poured tea with steady hands and studied Victoria with the quiet intensity of a woman who'd learned to read people through 2 decades of loving damaged children. "Daniel told me about the baby you lost," Elena said finally. Victoria's throat tightened. "Did he tell you how I lost her?" "He told me you made an impossible choice at 23. I made some impossible choices at that age too." Elena's voice was gentle. "The question isn't what you did then, it's what you're willing to do now." "I'm willing to disappear, to give this child the life I never learned how to provide." "That's not what I'm asking." Elena leaned forward. "Victoria, do you think Daniel spent 25 years hunting you down for revenge?" Yes. He spent 25 years wondering if the woman he loved was still alive somewhere, inside the person who destroyed so many lives. When he found out about the baby you lost, about the choices you made out of fear, he called me crying, Victoria. My husband, who hasn't cried since his mother died, wept for the girl you used to be. Victoria felt tears starting again. "Elena, I don't deserve—"
None of us deserve love. That's what makes it love instead of payment. Elena reached across the table and took Victoria's hands. "Daniel and I want to adopt your baby. But more than that, we want you to be part of their life. The papers I signed can be modified with court approval. Closed adoption can become open adoption if all parties agree." Elena's eyes were bright with possibility. This baby could grow up knowing they have 3 parents who love them. Elena and Daniel, who raised them day to day, and Victoria, who gave them life and made sure they found their way to the right family. Victoria couldn't speak. The idea was too large, too generous, too impossibly beautiful. "Why?" she finally whispered. "Because that baby is carrying the DNA of James Patterson, a man who spent 15 years making sure Daniel had a safe place to cry into his beer when he missed you. Because they're carrying your DNA too. And despite everything you've done, you're still the woman Daniel loved enough to marry." Elena squeezed her hands. "And because every child deserves to know where they came from." Daniel appeared in the doorway. "How's it going in here?" "Your wife is offering me something I don't deserve," Victoria said. "She's good at that. It's why I married her." Daniel sat down beside Elena. "Victoria, we've talked about this. We want to do this right, not just for the baby, but for you." "I'm going to prison." "For 12 months, probably less with good behavior. When you get out, you'll need a job, a place to live, a chance to rebuild your life." Elena smiled. "Sarah's law firm specializes in second chances. They help people transition back into society after incarceration." Victoria looked around Elena's kitchen, seeing the family photos that covered every surface. Elena and Daniel's wedding, Christmas mornings, birthday parties, Sarah's graduation from law school, David's high school soccer team, Michael's science fair projects. "I don't know how to be part of a family. I've spent so many years destroying them." "Then it's time to learn how to build one," Daniel replied. 3 months later, Victoria sat in a minimum security facility's visiting room, watching Elena and Daniel take turns holding baby Emma Patterson Morrison. The infant had dark hair and Victoria's stubborn chin. And when she looked at Victoria with those bright, curious eyes, Victoria felt something she'd never experienced before: unconditional love without possession. "She's perfect," Victoria whispered, touching Emma's tiny hand through the glass barrier. "She's healthy, happy, and surrounded by people who adore her. Sarah reads to her every night. David sings her to sleep. Michael is convinced she's going to be a scientist because she stares at his chemistry set."
And you? Victoria asked. Elena's eyes filled with tears. I haven't been this happy since we adopted Sarah. She's brought life back into our house. Daniel leaned forward. Victoria, there's something else. Adrian wanted me to tell you. He's not pressing charges for the house. He's keeping it, but he's also creating a foundation in your name. The Victoria Sterling Foundation for Single Mothers. All the money you stole from him is going toward helping women in impossible situations make better choices. Victoria started crying. Not the bitter tears of self-pity she'd shed so many times before, but tears of gratitude and wonder that something good could come from all her terrible choices. I have 9 months left in here. When you get out, you'll have a job waiting at Sarah's firm, an apartment near our house, and a goddaughter who will need someone to teach her how to be strong and independent and unafraid of making hard choices. Elena smiled. Though hopefully she'll make better ones than any of us did. As visiting hours ended and Victoria watched Daniel and Elena leave with baby Emma, she felt something she hadn't experienced in 25 years. Hope. Not the desperate, grasping hope of someone trying to avoid consequences, but the quiet, steady hope of someone who had finally learned the difference between taking and receiving, between manipulation and love, between fear and faith. Victoria pressed her palm against the visiting room window and whispered, I'll see you soon, little one. Aunt Victoria is going to spend every day for the rest of her life making sure you know how loved you are. Outside, through the prison window, Daniel's car disappeared down the road, carrying 3 generations of second chances toward a future none of them could have imagined when the story began with a pizza delivery and a threatening note. Victoria returned to her cell with a heart fuller than any mansion had ever made her, finally understanding that the love she had spent decades trying to buy, steal, and manipulate had been waiting for her all along, patient, forgiving, and real. Sometimes the best endings are also the most unexpected beginnings.